The story begins with our hero, Haruto Amakawa, an orphan with more personality than a wet sock. He's standing outside his humble abode, ready to leave the suburbs and step into the big, wild city. But guess who's upset? None other than his childhood crush, Miharu. She's bawling her eyes out, begging him not to leave. She clings to him like a toddler holding onto their favorite teddy bear, but Haruto, in his infinite wisdom, tells her to shut it and stop crying. Who needs emotions when you're about to embark on the greatest adventure of your life, right? In a stunning display of self-centeredness, he promises that when he's older, he'll remember her, because that's what every hero does, right? Forget about her for the next few years, then swoop in like some kind of emotional knight in shining armor, ready to marry her and protect her from whatever danger she may face. Romantic, maybe. Practical, definitely not. Fast forward to the present, and we see grown-up Haruto, now a university student. He's on a bus, heading back from a long day of pretending to study. We all know the drill. But then, things take a dramatic turn. A young girl on the bus stares at him like he's the last slice of pizza at a party. However, before he can even question her intensity, the bus goes into full chaos mode, shaking uncontrollably. And just when you think things couldn't get worse, bam! Mr. Train comes crashing into their lives, as if being isekai'd wasn't already a wild enough experience. Why the hell not, right? Next thing we know, Haruto finds himself in a whole new world, now trapped in the body of an even stinkier, more pathetic version of himself, Ryo. And guess what? Ryo is sweating like he's been running a marathon in the Sahara. Not to mention the overwhelming scent of, well, dog. But that's not all. Ryo starts having flashbacks to someone else's life, like a weird dream that won't quit. He's not sure whose memories these are, but he's pretty sure he isn't Haruto Amakawa anymore. He even forgets his own name, Classic, and starts calling himself Haruto, but has no clue who that guy even is. It's like he's living inside someone else's head, which, to be fair, isn't that uncommon in an isekai. Suddenly, a trio of thugs bursts into the room like a bad sequel to Die Hard. They're shocked to see Ryo is still alive, apparently surprised that a boy with his hygiene managed to survive such a terrible fever. They were about to start digging him a grave, but now they've got bigger things to focus on, like how to deal with the smell. They even beg him to find some Axe body spray. Talk about a desperate situation. Ryo stumbles outside to scavenge for fruit, because who needs a proper meal when you can eat berries in a garbage heap, and has more flashbacks about Haruto. He starts piecing together that Haruto was some university student from Japan who was hit by a train while on a bus. Naturally, Ryo is confused, considering he doesn't even know what a bus is. It's like he's living in an alternate reality where basic transportation is a foreign concept. Ryo eventually comes to the conclusion that he's just some poor kid from the slums whose only real goal in life is to avenge his mother's death at the hands of some assassin. Classic revenge-driven origin story, except his story is set in a world that smells a lot worse. More flashbacks follow, this time featuring Ryo talking to his mother about their dream of visiting his grandparents' kingdom. She promised that one day they'd leave the slums behind. But then, bam, assassin time. His mother's dead, and now his only goal in life is to find the assassin and give him a taste of his own medicine. Naturally, his revenge-fueled quest will become his life's work, because why not add a little drama to the mix? A group of noble-looking girls approaches Ryo, asking if he's seen a cute, bubbly, purple-haired girl. She's gone missing, and they seem a little too concerned. Ryo, ever the straight shooter, says he hasn't seen anyone like that at all. However, these girls waste no time in telling him how bad he smells and make sure to stay far away while talking about him. One of the older girls, Vanessa, is especially rude, and Ryo, ever the smooth operator, decides to give some attitude right back. Then enters Celia, the silver-haired girl who apologizes for Vanessa's behavior. Celia asks Ryo more politely if he knows anything about the missing girl. Ryo, with his usual nonchalance, tells her he doesn't know anything and hasn't heard a thing about it. Celia then asks him where the slums are, and Ryo, in all his wisdom, suggests that she and her fancy friends probably shouldn't venture there dressed in their fine clothes. Something bad might happen, you know, like them being mistaken for noble targets. The girls consider changing clothes before heading into the slums. Just before they leave to check around one last time, Celia uses a magic detection spell to see if she can sense any magical activity that might lead them to their friend. While no sign of the purple-haired girl pops up, they do detect something much more interesting, magic radiating from Ryo himself. Vanessa, ever the skeptic, asks Celia if she did something to him. Celia, however, is fascinated. Ryo seems to have some mysterious magical spirit chronicle that's somehow stronger than anything they have ever sensed. Ryo, of course, has no idea what's going on, and just wonders how he's got this blue flame of magic suddenly surrounding him. After realizing that their missing friend is likely in the slums, they thank Smelly Rio and leave him to rot in his slum life. Before going though, Celia hands him a huge bag of silver coins. So many, in fact, that Rio can't even count them all. He straps it around his neck like a blinged out pendant. Rio rushes home, but just as he enters his yard, an assassin jumps out and tries to stab him. The assassin's blade, however, hits the bag of coins, saving Rio's life in a very unorthodox way. Weak and panicked, Rio curls up in the corner, ready for the assassin to finish him off, but out of nowhere, a mysterious pink-haired beauty appears in spirit form and calls Rio by his Japanese name, Haruto. She explains in no uncertain terms that she's about to teach him the most basic forms of magical combat so he doesn't get shish kebabbed by this assassin. Rio, still clueless about his abilities, is suddenly graced with magical combat knowledge and begins remembering his training from his past life when his grandfather used to train him. Using these new skills, Rio fights back, pulling off an insane kick that knocks the assassin's knife to the ground. The assassin, now visibly shaken, tries to call Rio a disgusting slum rat and goes in for a final blow, but Rio pulls off some sort of crazy technique, finishing the assassin off in style. Shocked by his newfound power, Rio stares down at the unconscious assassin, who is, unconscious. After realizing the assassin had taken out all the other men, Rio hears a noise coming from one of the brown sacks they brought in earlier. Inside, he finds the purple-haired girl, Princess Flora, the very same one Celia and her group were searching for. Flora explains that she was captured for ransom, and Rio must help her get back to the castle. She promises him a handsome reward from her father if he succeeds. Rio, still confused, agrees to help because, hey, why not? As they make their way outside, they're spotted by the other noble girls. They rush over and accuse Rio of kidnapping Princess Flora despite his unquestionable kindness. They call him many unpleasant names, saying he's a filthy liar and arrest him for his crimes. Rio tries explaining, but they don't listen. He's a common boy from the slums, so what could he possibly know? They take him to the castle to answer for his crime, and this is where he meets Charles, the Lord Commander, and the first sword to the king. Charles, the noble who loves humiliating the common folk, relishes the opportunity to beat Rio up with a wooden stick. Rio insists he's done nothing wrong, but Charles doesn't care. He's having too much fun. Eventually, Princess Flora wakes up and tells everyone that Rio is not to blame and actually saved her. She wants Rio brought to her immediately, no questions asked. Celia, who's the only one with any sense, heads to the dungeons to check on Rio. She's shocked to find him barely alive. So she orders Charles to let him go and uses a healing spell to bring him back to life, just in time for Rio to not die in the dungeons. After some tender care, Rio wakes up in a bed, much to his confusion. Celia explains that the king wants to thank him personally and Rio is about to meet royalty, which totally blows his mind. Is this his life now? Rio's first lesson in nobility comes in the form of Celia teaching him the proper way to meet a king. After all, you can't just waltz in and say, "Yo, I saved your daughter, where's the cash?" With a slick new haircut, Rio is ready to meet the king, and after a somewhat awkward introduction, he's admitted to the Beltram Royal Academy of Magic. Celia warns him that the students there are mostly from privileged families, and that he'll probably get bullied out of his mind. But Rio, being the chill guy he is, doesn't mind at all. And so, Rio's life as the poor kid from the slums begins at the academy, where he's met with a frosty reception from his classmates. Later, during a martial arts class, Rio impresses the instructor by using his kendo experience thanks to Haruto, while the other students ridicule his stance. The instructor, however, respects his bold recklessness and invites him to join the Royal Knights, but Rio, ever the man with a plan, politely declines. A few days later, Celia administers the end-of-term exams where Rio, surprise, surprise, aces the test while the other students are barely scraping by. He leaves the exam venue a little worse for wear, but hey, at least he passed. As Rio's memories come flooding back, he's reminded of Miharu, his childhood sweetheart. The two had drifted apart once they reunited, leaving a bittersweet longing in his heart. A few days later, the exam results are posted, and much to everyone's surprise, Rio is at the top of the class alongside Christina. Her childhood friend, Rona, secures third place. But then, Alon, the nobleman who's been instigating discrimination against Rio, accuses him of cheating. Because why would a commoner like Rio do well without some shady dealings? Despite Alon's protests, Christina and Rona accept the results. Celia steps up to vouch for Rio's hard work, defending him fiercely. Alon and his band of backstreet boys, can they even be taken seriously, storm off in a dramatic flip of their bangs. Celia congratulates Rio, but worries the others might hold his success against him. Rio, ever the optimist, just smiles and reassures her. As long as he has Celia, he can weather any storm. Celia promises to support him however she can. Cue dramatic music.